It was a quiet Thursday morning, sunlight dancing off the lake, trout barely rippling the surface. I was sitting on my usual spot near the old cypress tree. Just me, my thermos of black coffee, and a rod I'd had since '92, the kind of peace only a man of retirement and a private deed could understand. Then came the shriek. "Excuse me, sir. You can't fish here." I turned around slowly. There she was. Flaming red bob haircut, HOA badge like she was deputized by God himself, and that classic Karen scowl that could curdle milk. Her name? Donna. Of course it was. "I live here," I said calmly. "I own this land, but facts are allergic to people like Donna." She whipped out her phone like it was a weapon, snapping photos like I was robbing Fort Knox. "I'm calling the cops. This is HOA property and you're trespassing." I almost laughed, but I let her go through the motions. You see, I knew something she didn't. My son's the police chief of this entire county. And that peaceful lake I was trespassing on? Yeah, it's mine. Deeded, documented, and more private than her gated attitude. She had no clue she was poking a bear in a fishing hat, and the moment the cruiser rolled up and she started gesturing, like she was leading an arrest squad, that was the moment I knew she was about to learn what real ownership looks like. Let me back things up a little. I'd lived in that lakeside house for nearly 2 decades. Bought it back when the place was little more than gravel roads and deer crossings. The lake? It was part of a large, oddly shaped parcel originally, owned by an old cattle baron who went belly up in the '80s. I picked it up in a probate sale for a song. Turns out no one ever noticed the lake technically wasn't public. It sat right on the edge of a new development, which years later would become, yep, you guessed it, Lakeshore Meadows HOA. Now, the HOA had fancy brochures, community potlucks, and self-importance leaking from every mailbox. They built around the lake like it was their personal centerpiece. Even put up a little sign, private HOA use, only. Bold move for folks who didn't legally own a drop of the water. Still, I never bothered anyone. I stayed on my side of the lake, fished when I wanted, waved politely when folks walked their dogs by. But there's always one person who thinks the world turns on her approval. And in our case, that was Donna. She moved in 3 months prior, mid-50s, silver Lexus, matching lawn ornaments, and the uncanny ability to weaponize the phrase, "per my last email." Within weeks, she'd bulldozed her way onto the HOA board, started nitpicking fence heights, barking about paint swatches, and walking around with a clipboard like she was collecting souls. I had a run-in with her early on. "Are you with the HOA?" she asked the first time she saw me casting off the pier. "Nope," I said without looking up from my reel. "You know this is private HOA space, right?" I just smiled. "Is that so?" She huffed off, and I figured that was the end of it. Just another paper tyrant flexing where no flex was needed. But Donna didn't like things she couldn't control, and I, by virtue of not needing her permission to breathe, was now a problem. A week after that encounter, I came home to find a yellow note taped to my dock. Reminder: use of HOA common areas is restricted to dues-paying members. Violators will be fined. Neat, except I wasn't a member. Never had been. My property was technically carved out before the HOA even existed, which meant their jurisdiction ended at the gravel line. Still, I decided to play nice. I wrote, "Not part of HOA. Please consult county plat maps," in big black marker across the note and left it for her to find. She did, and she didn't take it well. The next week, she showed up while I was organizing my tackle box. "I'll have you know this lake is maintained with HOA funds," she snapped. "Ma'am," I said, pulling out a folded document from my tackle bag. "This is the original deed and water rights transfer. You're standing on my property." She snatched the paper, squinted at it, then shoved it back like it burned her. "Well, then, maybe you'd be kind enough to consider the optics," she said. "Optics?" "Yes," she said. "The residents here expect a certain aesthetic. Are you suggesting I lower the property value by existing?" "No, I'm saying you're not a good fit for our community standards." I chuckled. "Donna, I'm not in your community. I just own the view." And with that, I figured she'd walk away, wounded pride and all. But what I didn't realize was that people like Donna don't quit when they lose. They regroup, they double down, and they plot. A few days passed. Things seemed quiet. Then I noticed the foot traffic. Teenagers I'd never seen before started walking down to my side of the lake at all hours, loud, rowdy, sometimes carrying fast food wrappers and Bluetooth speakers. One group even left beer cans floating near my dock. The next morning, a neighborhood Facebook post popped up. Disturbing behavior spotted near the lake, non-residents, causing noise and mess. We are working with the HOA board to increase patrols. If you see something, say something. I knew exactly what was going on. Donna was trying to build a case, a pattern. She wanted to paint my side of the lake as the Wild West so she could justify restrictions, or worse, find a legal loophole to seize control. Then came the fines, cameras, and even an emergency HOA vote to block off my access path. But she overplayed her hand when she called the cops on me. The cruiser rolled up and out stepped Officer Moore, my son's right-hand man. "Afternoon, sir," he said with a smirk. "Dad." Donna froze. "Wait, Dad?" "That's right," I said. "My son's the chief. I think he'd be very interested in how this HOA is wasting police resources." Donna's face drained of color. From that moment, the war was no longer just about fishing. It was about setting things straight. I had the property resurveyed and legally documented every inch of my shoreline. Then I installed tasteful signs, a decorative fence, and a locking swing gate across my path. I issued a cease and desist to the board, citing harassment and trespassing. Donna was thrown under the bus by her own team. She resigned quietly, moved away, and the HOA? They renamed the lake in my honor. Martin's Lake. There's even a bench now, with a plaque that reads, "In honor of stewardship, civility, and the right to cast in peace." Every weekend now, I sit on that dock, sometimes with my sons, sometimes with neighbors who once believed Donna's lies. We laugh, we grill, we fish, and above us, the sky is clear, the water still. And the lake? It's mine. So tell me, have you ever had to deal with a power-tripping neighbor or an HOA nightmare? Drop your story in the comments. And if you made it to the end of this story, comment "justice served" so I know you're one of the real ones. And remember, next time someone tells you you can't fish here, just smile and cast your line anyway. And remember, next time someone tells you you can't fish here, just smile and cast your line anyway. Because people like Donna, they don't just hate being wrong. They hate when they're not the main character. They need drama, control, applause. And when you give them none of it, when you stay calm, collected, and just keep living, they unravel. That's the funny thing about entitlement. It doesn't stand a chance against patience. Because real power is quiet. It's showing up every day, doing the right thing, and letting time expose the truth, like the sun burning off the morning fog. Now when I sit on that dock, it's not just for the fishing. It's a ritual, a statement, a reminder that peace isn't something you're handed. It's something you claim, protect, and sometimes fight for without ever raising your voice. There's a strange kind of justice in the way it all ended. Donna didn't get arrested. She didn't get sued. She just faded, moved out, vanished from the very community she tried to rule. And I didn't have to destroy her to win. I just had to outlast her. These days, the lake's got more life in it than ever. Birds nesting in the reeds, kids laughing in the distance, neighbors stopping by to share stories, not complaints. And on the far side of the water, that empty house with the "for sale" sign, still waiting. Because no matter how nice the lawn looks, folks around here remember whose name is on the bench, whose lake it really is. So if you're dealing with a Karen, a clipboard tyrant, or an HOA board that thinks they own the air you breathe, take a deep breath, stand tall, and cast your line. Because the fish don't care about titles, and neither do I. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel for more crazy stories. Goodbye.